All right, I'm gonna try this without damaging my reservoir that I just installed. Let's see how this is gonna go. Ooh. Ouch, 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 that's... Got that out. It looks like I did barely just nick it, but it didn't go all the way through. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I've got a couple of things that I'm really excited about. I have been fabricating a new bracket for the Miyamoto oil cooler that's going in the front of the car. I'm doing it in a little bit of a different place than the Boost Brothers garage guys did, just because I have an AC condenser in the front, so it's not going to fit directly in the front of it. So I'm actually placing it where the old air conditioner compressor was, kind of to the front driver's side of the car. So that's where this is going to go. This is my first time welding on the car, so I'm going to be very careful and take a couple practice runs and just get used to welding again. I'm still really new to it, so I'm kind of anxious about actually making mistakes on the body of the car itself. So that's going to be exciting. The other bracket that I'm installing is the bracket for the power steering reservoir. You saw me in the intro cutting that off and almost taking out my windshield washer fluid reservoir. I nicked it a little bit, so we'll see. I think I can just patch that with a little JB weld. I don't think it went all the way through. Speaking of that, I had some issues with it where it was preventing me from being able to open and close the headlights of my car. I just had it, millimeters out of the way. It doesn't clear it. It clears it very closely. So I actually had to pull everything back out and then jimmy that around. So now I can actually open and close my headlights again. But it was definitely one of those things that I wasn't too happy to see. So this is where I want that to go, but I'm trying to do this one-handed. But you can see here that it doesn't quite fit, and it's kind of crowding everything in here. So I got to try to do this with the headlights down. I'll pop it up when I weld it, but it's just too tight. So I'm going to try to take a little bit more of that back bracket off, so that way it'll be a little bit more flush with the front one. I'll clean that up with a file and see if it works. Alright, so we're all prepped. I've cleaned out the paint around where it's going. I've also cleaned off the paint on the edges of the bracket itself. So all that's left to do is actually go and weld it in. So if you're following along at home and you find yourself in a position where you're in my same shoes and you need to move the bracket out of its stock place, what I did was I used a Dremel and then a Sawzall to cut it out along these edges here. And then I took bits off of each side until they were almost flush with each other. Let me see if I can't get that angle. Because they're actually longer and shorter, they still fit the curve okay. And then on the bottom, I took about 1 centimeter off of that flange, so that way if this is the bulkhead, it fits tilting to the side a little bit, forward a little bit like that. So that's the only way I could get it in to clear the headlight bracket, all of the coolant hoses and everything else like that. It's a really tight fit. So I'm going to try to weld it in, and if it works, I'll let you know. Okay, so I think I finally got it to where that's actually going to fit. You can see that unfortunately the reservoir has to kind of go in cockeyed. But you can see it just barely clears the headlight bracket as it closes, and it's even like touching the coolant exit hose from the reservoir for the engine over there on the left. I was worried about it actually clearing the downpipes, actually clearing the frame over here on the left, so I attached a hose to it temporarily just to make sure that it would fit. I'm sorry if you're having trouble seeing that. Let me try it from the bottom. There we go. So the hose actually is coming down for the, or that's going to be the hose that goes up out of the cooler. That's over here. So I'll have to route that. And then the other one, the thicker pipe, will be the one that goes down into the actual pump. So that's going to be a little tricky weld, but you know, once I pull everything out, it should be okay. But that was a really tight fit. So, oh, that's going to be so close. It's just millimeters between it bumping things or even rubbing against them. So hopefully this will be okay. All right, and there we go. We've got the new power steering reservoir bracket welded on. I know that isn't, you know, a super clean weld, but it's holding in place. You can see I'm yanking on it, and the fender is moving with it, so that's a good weld between them. Not really going to be too visible, so I'm not too upset about it. I just have to repaint it. Ooh. So I think that'll go ahead and be our first coat. I'll probably put a couple more in there. That's actually a little more wet than I was hoping it would be, but well, at least it won't rust, theoretically. So the next thing I'm going to take on is trying to install the mount for this oil cooler here. I've mocked one up and built it. Some of my finest craftsmanship, I'm sure. It might be a little short, but we'll see when I try to weld it in. The biggest problem is that because of the geometry of the space, it's catching on the top bits here around these holes. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to shave just a little bit off of each one of these very, very carefully, so that way it'll angle in properly. I need to maintain these bolt holes so that way it actually, you know, still connects to 4 points on this oil cooler. But we're going to go ahead and give this a try and see how it works out. All right, and there we go. One oil cooler on a bracket that I'm going to mount in the other side of the car. Poor cooler looks a little rough for wear, worse for wear. I had to modify bits of it to actually get it to fit. But I should have just thought about pushing it forward in the first place. So it should still be fine. All right, no more procrastinating. Let's go ahead and get it in under there. Oh. I think I got it. All right. I don't think that's going anywhere. Blech. It'll sit on top of this bracket in this place here. I removed one of the horns. They weren't working anyway, so I'm going to have to replace that at some point. And as you can see here, this one is really on there as well. So the whole car is shaking when I pull it. And this one's more important than the power steering pump, obviously, because if the oil cooler comes off, that's going to be a really bad time for me in the car. But honestly, I'm pretty happy with the progress that I've made and the expertise that I picked up on, at least a little bit of basic welding. Full disclosure, both of these welds I had to redo. I showed my friend Spencer exactly what I did, and he pretty much laughed at me and told me I had to redo it. So I took a couple of weeks, did a lot of welding, burnt through a lot of metal, and got a lot better at it. So still not an expert. Of course, people spend their whole lives learning how to weld, but at least I know that it's not going to fall off.
The very last thing that I needed to get done for this video was replacing these brake dust covers. In a previous life, this car was dropped off its wheels when somebody back in the 90s stole those wheels off it. So a lot of the car is all bent up underneath, and I'll be replacing those bits here and there. First thing I needed to do was tap the cap off and then loosen a couple of bolts in the axle area that's covered with the grease. It just rotated off, and then I pulled the whole hub off, and then there were 3 10mm bolts on the inside that I just ratcheted off before replacing it with the new covers. Was just the same as installation. However, all I had to do is just add more grease onto the axle here. Figured while I was in there, no point in wasting that step. Very finally, I just had to tap the cap back in with a rubber mallet, and everything went together very nicely.
And there they are, complete with the brake rotors in front of them. I know that this is kind of superfluous. We don't really need these brake dust shields. But I'm going through all the effort. I really want this car to just stand out and go be something that I'm super proud of. That there's nothing here that I wish that I'd look at and I could say, you know what, I could have fixed that while I was in there, but I chose not to. So it's dragging the project out a little bit, but you know what, at the end of the day, you actually have something that you don't have any regrets for once it's finished. So thank you guys so very much for watching. In the next episode, I'm going to start tearing into the actual 07K engine and replacing it with the parts that I have already. So I'm super excited to take that next step. I'll see you all next time.